Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lou. This is the reaction podcast between the Toronto Raptors and the Washington Wizards on the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. For all your sports betting needs, hit the QR code on the YouTube stream to get at Betway, friends of the program. So the Raptors today defeat the Washington Wizards 125-98 in preseason action in Montreal. It was a really good game to just showcase some of the players that you typically wouldn't see throughout the season. Obviously, you had a couple guys missing in terms of key players, and unfortunately, a couple more potential injuries. So I'll get into that in a second, but just letting people know, we are going live after several games this season. We'll continue to announce it, obviously, on Twitter and on socials. And yeah, you can catch us here live at the Hello and Welcome pod on YouTube. You can... Honestly, the best way to get it is just if you just hit subscribe, hit the bell for the notification, you'll know exactly when we're going live and you can tap in. And of course, when you are here, you can please leave your observations in the live chat or in the comment section. We really do love hearing from you. And, producer Alex Wong is in the chat dutifully looking for questions, which I will get to in the second half of the program. So, yeah, in this game, Raptors win 125-98. First look at the Raptors, unless you were one of the lucky 500 people in the McGill gym on Friday. This was, just the Washington Wizards. It's just preseason, but at the same time, I think you could take a lot of positives out of this one. The Raptors got out to a huge lead, led 34-16 after the first quarter. It was like 13-2 by the time the Wizards finally called timeout to start the game, and I just thought the Raptors came out with the focus, with an intensity that they have been promising. I think I think the Raptors have not been promising wins. If you listen to all the interviews, they're not necessarily talking about it in those terms. No one has said the word playoffs. No one's even said the word play in. But at the same time, I think what they have promised is a style of play, a dedication to that style, and of course, development of young players to adopt that style. And I think you saw the Raptors come out. Offensively, it was kind of an extension of what they did last season. Darko really implemented a ball movement type of offense. A lot of actions through the high post. You saw a lot of that today with Jakob Poeltl for the starting lineup, and then even more of that with Kelly Olynyk for the second unit. You could probably imagine there's even more of that when Scotty Barnes is obviously available. He was with the team. He did join them for practice on Saturday, and he was on the sidelines here on Sunday. But he's available, and obviously he's healthy. The personal absence is over, at least for now. But still, I think you get to see an extension of sort of what they do offensively, which is move the ball. They had 39 assists today. Shot the three at a decent rate, 15 for 37, which I think is a healthy number. I think if the Raptors stay around 40 threes attempted in a game, I think that's usually a pretty good mark. And of course, they're missing the best three-point shooter today in Emmanuel Quickly, who continues to be sidelined with a sprained, I believe, right thumb. I think he's been taking part in practices and stuff like that. But at the same time, still no reason to risk anything like this in a preseason setting. I think what you would also like to see too from this group is just some of the newer faces, and we'll get to that, of course. There's a lot of rookies, and thanks to Vivek Jacob would let me know that there's also a lot of glare on my glasses. So I'm going to turn down the brightness on my laptop. But you got a chance to see Jonathan Mogbo, who slid into the starting lineup. 20 minutes played in this one. Obviously, you imagine that comes down when it's not preseason, when it's not Scotty's out of the lineup. But at the same time, I did think that Mogbo would have a chance to sort of crack the rotation just based on sort of the availability in terms of how they built the roster. There aren't that many forwards, especially forwards with size. And so we got an extended look at Mogbo with the starting group. We'll touch on him. There's also Ulrich Chomche, who got in for a lot of the fourth quarter. Guys like Brandon Carlson got in for the fourth quarter. But I think you got to really leave this one with Jamal Shead. And I think that, Shead, for people who are maybe tuning into the season now rather than in Summer League, which is totally reasonable. I mean, a lot of people, have things to do in the summertime and not necessarily looking at Summer League or even at the draft, where the Raptors took Jamal Shead 45th overall. That was an extra pick that they picked up from the Jalen McDaniels trade, which also landed them Davion Mitchell, who played here today. But yeah, I think the pick of Jamal Shead, and I think for me he was the guy who stood out the most. He was the guy that I enjoyed watching the most, and I think that for a rookie, first off, that's actually pretty impressive because I thought the other guys looked very much like rookies. You know what I mean? Even guys like Carlson, who is 25 years old, which is like the same age as Emmanuel Quickly, to put it into reference. But even he kind of looked like a rookie. But Shed looked very comfortable right away. And in this game, it was kind of impossible not to notice him. He's wearing the 23, so obviously you can make the comparison to Fred if you want to, but I actually don't necessarily see them as very similar players to be honest, because Fred is uh, was always a very good shooter, was sort of almost excelled more playing as a slower pace. Not to say he couldn't speed it up too. Of course, he's a point guard, but you know. Just wasn't as strong taking it to the cup. I feel like Shed is a guy who, first off, he's quick off the floor. He has a little bit of that, floater game, in between game. He likes to play the glass a lot. It takes a lot of weird angles on his drives. And you've seen, for example, if you've seen any college basketball, you would definitely know Jamal Shead. He's been a part of a very, very winning program over in Houston. But he's been a guy who, has sort of primarily made his mark defensively, but isn't necessarily a strong shooter. But I mean, like the mark that he makes defensively is notable. Like it's a standout skill, and I think that especially for all these young guys that come in, like what is that one thing that you do that the coach will look at you and say, you know what, I actually can depend on you for this? Because like up until this point, all these other guys are all unknown, right? Mogbo might have a little bit of everything in terms of just like he can do a little bit of this, he can do a little of that. Doesn't stand out right now in terms of that one skill. Same thing with Chomche. Same thing with even Jacoby when he comes in. Unless he's made a huge stride since summer league, there isn't that sort of one signature skill that you can say absolutely I'm going to bank on that. With Jamal, I think that's what's unique about him, and I think he was probably my favorite player to watch for the Raptors in summer league. Was just how much he is disruptive, how much he gets after plays. It's not like it's a guy which you need to tell him sort of like, let's get after it, or you need to motivate this guy. Like he is shot out of a cannon. And it's impressive that like the Raptors started this game with Davion Mitchell in the starting lineup because Quickly's out, so you slide one more point guard, the bench point guard into the starting lineup, and Davion's a very good defender. Like that's exactly what he's known for. Dating back to when he was in Baylor, I think he won Defensive Player of the Year. And then he comes to Sacramento, and he was a defensive guy, and the nickname for him was Off Night. And I think he's established that ability, and I think that he did a good job of defending his position as well. But the fact that Jamal comes in and like in the first quarter, I believe he played about 4.5 minutes, maybe 4 to 5 minutes. In the first quarter alone, he already created 2 steals and 2 other offensive fouls on the Wizards directly because of his action. And I think it's just like the fact that he's just like reading the play, anticipating the play. He already clearly knows a lot of the set actions. You could tell he's clearly studied a lot of plays because like, like not to say like it's a little scripted or rehearsed, but like there's a lot of things that like, teams typically do and that are relatively similar. And I think that Jamal was able to jump a couple passing lanes. One of those, he was able to catch the ball midair and fake out the defender who was trying to, I guess, prevent him to throw it back inbounds. And then it's kind of threw like a no-look pass to, I believe, Kelly, who was helping him save the ball into the basket to secure the steal. And then he got the inbound right back to him as he came up the floor, and he went all the way for a layup. Like, stuff like that. Or stuff like how much he was fighting to get around screens, even with like a big screener out there. Like, Jonas Valanciunas is as big of a screener as there is. And he actually even ended up clipping RJ, which led to RJ leaving the game with a shoulder bruise on his right side. So hopefully RJ's okay. But they had some big screeners out there, and Jamal was just like fighting to stay attached, and even eating moving screen calls in a preseason game. Like that's beautiful to see. Or like him getting into his defenders so much that they're sort of like swinging their elbows to clear room just to get him off them. Like he does that extra little bit that like you want defensive pests to like always be doing. And they're not gambles. Like he's not putting himself out of position where if he doesn't make the play, it's a complete turnover, or it's like a complete like breakdown. Like he's not playing for steals. He just is like absolutely dogged when it comes to playing defense. And I think that the more that we will see of him, and I don't know how much we will see of him, especially right away, because between Quickly and Davion Mitchell, you kind of have 48 minutes of point guard play. And it's not like Mitchell, if you need a defensive option, I think Mitchell has shown a longer track record of this and stuff like that. But the reason I like the Shed pick is not only because of his ability, but it kind of signifies like this is what the Raptors want to do, right? Like last season, they played terrible on defense. Like most nights, it was like I was like pulling my hair out. Talking about this team and sort of like they go down 10 early in the first quarter. There wasn't really a defensive focus. Obviously, guys coming in and out sucked too, but like still, like their defense was just really disappointing for a group that, quite frankly, should have been pretty good on defense. Like even if you looked at last year's starting lineup, Dennis Schroeder is a good on the ball defender. Pesky and all that kind of stuff. Then you got OG, who's one of the best defenders in the league, period. Pascal's pretty good for his position. Yakov's pretty good for his position. Who else was starting? Am I forgetting somebody? No, those are the five. But like even that alone should have been decent. But the Raptors all season were disconnected on defense, and they got just downright horrendous in the second half of the season. And one of the focuses this year is they want to, put the ball. They want to apply a lot of ball pressure. They want to, create a lot of deflections. And honestly, like some of that could just be lip service too. You know what I mean? Like it's not like any team comes in the training camp and says like, "Hey, we actually don't want ball pressure and we don't want deflections." But I think it becomes more than lip service when you actually see it take place on the court, and you see it take place in terms of like the way they drafted. Like they drafted 4 defensive guys, and so yeah, Jamal for me. I mean, even on the offensive end, he took it to the couple times. He's quick off his feet on those drives, so he won't go all the way for layups all the way all the time. I mean, he will sort of play the glass and stuff like that, sort of like I guess he sort of like mixes with the timing. It's a little bit unorthodox. I think the concern with him is just the 3-point shot is not necessarily there, and he missed 1 today, or he missed 2 today, but that's not a strength of his. I think he needs to extend his range, not only from just regular threes, but probably like even a little bit deeper. To borrow and extend the Fred VanVleet analogy, like the more that he can shoot from deeper behind the line, the better, because he is shorter. He's probably like 6'11", maybe 6 foot. So like it's honestly like it's kind of exactly in the Raptors' wheelhouse of like the point guards that they've liked and that we have loved for the last decade. But yeah, for me, it's just like it's a clear standout, and I think on the offensive end, he's clearly similar to Davion. Like they're more pass first kind of guys, partially as a function of their just limited offensive package, but also like I don't mind that, especially on this team where Raptors want to play so much through their bigs and through their big wings. Having a guard who can really pressure the ball, but then also space out and set up guys and just keep the offense running, I think it works really well. So I think it was just an absolute pleasure watching Shed. I said that in Summer League, and I'm sticking to that here. The official nickname for the fan club is Shedheads. So we've been on this Shedhead vibe, but yeah, I mean that for me was the most impressive part of this game. Beyond that, I think very similar to sort of what I was able to report from the Raptors open practice on Friday. RJ Barrett and Kelly Olynyk were the 2 most sort of not even just high usage, but just like the most effective offensive players on the team, at least that they had available with Scotty and IQ out. And for RJ, I mean, he was the one thing that Kelly said about RJ, even on Media Day, which was a week ago now, was that he's been shooting the 3 better. That's something we saw in the Olympics as well. That's something that we saw even last season with him joining the Raptors. I think he got his 3-point percentage up to like 39%. I think they're still mostly catch and shoot threes, stand still, where other guys are setting up for him. But again, like even me being a sicko, going to practices and watching how guys are performing in terms of shooting and stuff like that, like he's been working on the 3 quite a bit, which obviously a lot of players do right these days. But like he's in shooting battles with Grady Dick, and he's like right there with him, which is really impressive considering Grady is an excellent shooter, right? So I just think that RJ's in a good rhythm. He's in a good mode. It's not a 3 that he sort of settles for. It's a 3 that he takes in terms of like obviously if it's open. Obviously if guys go under the screen, stuff like that, catch a shoot, when he catches it on the wing, he's open, he's knocking those down. But I also think that like, that is if this is something that continues on to the season, if he's got a good rhythm with this, I think that's huge. Like he's already so good at getting to the basket, and you've seen like I don't know, man, he probably got to the rim like 15 times in the 17 minutes he played, or in the 14 minutes that he played. And he was just kind of living at the basket, and whether it was him finishing, whether it was him dumping it off to his teammates, whether it was kicking it out, like he did a really good job of consistently touching the paint. And I think that in terms of the guys who create the most downhill pressure, I think he's the best guy at it on the team. I think Scotty probably has an ability to do that, but at the same time, we know that he can kind of float in and out of games in terms of the offensive, just like the physicality and sort of like always trying to like go downhill. And then quickly is obviously playing more of a point guard role, but obviously has a three. And then when he goes to the hoop, he goes with the floaters. RJ goes strong every time, man. Every single time he goes strong. He touches the paint, and then but at that point it's just coordination with other guys in terms of spacing to get him to open lanes to slash, or if the help comes over, how his big is going to present himself to sort of like be open for the little dump off shovel passes. Jakob, I think, is especially good at something like this. And of course, beyond that, I mean, if there's extra help coming from the wings, like RJ kicking out the threes and stuff like that. But I just think he played really well, and it was unfortunate that he left the game with just a shoulder bruise. Just a big screen from JV. We know JV's very physical. I don't think it was like a dirty player by any means. It's just a regular play. He's just huge. So hopefully RJ's okay, and hopefully that it's not going to hinder anything. He's come into camp in great shape. He's been really sharp. And the two times I've seen him actually in action so far, he's been, their best player amongst the guys available. I think for the other guys, I think Grady Dick, very interesting game for him because he went 0 for 4 from 3. And, that's obviously primarily what his role is. But at the same time, you're seeing sort of an expansion of sort of his ability to be aggressive and just get beyond just only taking the 3. I think one thing that is really notable with Grady is last season they worked with him so much attacking off the corners, and I don't just mean like where his shots were on the court. I mean like when you walk in before a game, like I usually go to the game like probably 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours before tip off, or I go into practice, stuff like that. What you would always see is Grady working with Ivo Simonich, who is one of the assistant coaches on Darko's staff, and he's kind of been personally working with Grady, and I think he actually deserves a lot of credit for this because Grady obviously has turned it around so much. But you saw them so much working on even just small fundamentals of attacking out of the corners, in addition to other things too, of course. Like you're trying to train him to be an all-around player, but specializing from attacking off the corners. So obviously that starts with the catch and shoot threes. And then obviously when that becomes a staple, when that goes into the scouting report, when people are flying out to close out, whether that's leaving their feet or even just like really rushing out and sort of lunging forward and using the momentum to close out, that's when he's been able to use that against them and get into the mid-range for the little mid-range pull-up, identifying where the spaces are there, attacking closeouts, even using pump fakes, and again, using the defenders sort of like, I don't know, I guess intensity against them. And you saw a variety of that. You saw him get into the mid-range. You saw him up fake, drive, baseline, floater. You saw him try to go one-on-one in the mid-range and knock down, a pull-up as well. And I think just to me, it's just he looked sharp in transition. He had back-to-back passes to set up his teammates right at the basket too. So I think it's nice to see Grady look more confident, play more confident. I think he's just a naturally confident guy. And he's sort of expanding off of that one thing that he does really well. Obviously you would love to see the threes drop at a higher rate, and whether it was in summer league the first time or the summer league this past year or even last season, like outside of corner threes, he actually hasn't been like super efficient from 3, but at the same time, like we know he's a good shooter, and it's about expanding other parts of his game. I mean, he also I don't think he took a charge here today, but he was in the mix defensively too. Like it wasn't bad, but I thought Grady acquitted himself well. Looks to be stronger, looks to be in shape, playing fast. And yeah, again, like you want him to not only rely on the 3. You want his whole game to be built off the 3, but it's not like I think part of the reason why he struggled so much to start last season was like if he goes 0 for 3 from three, which happens all the time if you're coming off the bench and you know, you're playing sporadic minutes. If he goes 0 for 3, like he probably going scoreless that game. Like there's lots of 0 point games for Grady last season, but there's a little bit more there. And I thought he played well, despite the fact that he couldn't get one to drop. Davion. I mean, I like Davion in terms of just like he didn't turn the ball over, he didn't take a bad shot. For me, he probably slowed it down a little bit too much. I don't know. Maybe he was like the starting lineup was just slower than the second unit, but it felt like Shed played faster than him in general. But I thought Davion was really in control. Took the right shots. Couldn't get down to threes to drop. One of them was like a late clock heave, so whatever. But like, um, but ultimately, I thought he ran a good pick and roll. Really has a good sense for how to play with Jakob. To be fair, Jakob makes it really easy for other guys to play off of him. He sets great screens. He knows when to roll hard, when to short roll. He's got good hands as well. But I just thought him and Davion worked well together. Maybe not as flashy as like Dennis Schroeder and Jakob last season, but like similarly in the sense that like when Davion's playing pick and roll with him, unlike most point guards now playing pick and roll with their centers, he's not looking to get the advantage for himself in terms of like I don't know, separation to pull up for three, or an open lane to drive and take a strong to the cup, or a mid-range pull up, or like a driving kick. Like he's not doing that as much. He's mostly looking to sort of create a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a window to slip it to Jakob, which again, like is more rare these days. But still, I thought his defensively was solid, and offensively he's pretty reserved. But at the same time, he doesn't really make mistakes. So it doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't really put too much on the table. In terms of just sort of like, especially if you need a bucket, for example, he's not the guy to give it to you. But at the same time, he's not going to take anything off the table with what he's doing. For the second unit, I mean, Kelly, Chris Boucher, those guys played a lot. Kelly, whenever he has the ball, he does a great, he does something good with it, like every single time. Foul baiting, or knocking down threes, or just in general being solid, like sealing his man. Like I think he's kind of like the brains for the whole second unit. Like I described in the open run on Friday, the Raptors ran a lot of Ochai Agbaji inverted pick and rolls with Kelly, where Kelly had the ball and Ochai would come screen for him. I thought Ochai did a worse job today of finding the spaces to cut into, and despite all that, he still had a good game with 9 points. A couple of athletic finishes around the basket, which is really good. He knocked down a corner three, which is nice. That's obviously, those are two things that he's probably gonna have to do. And then defensively, he gets after it. There's no problem. I think again, the more that he gets to play with Kelly, the better. I think with Chris, not only did he, this is the most classic Chris Boucher stat line, but like 13 points, he got 4 offensive rebounds, he got a block. He also took 5 threes, he made 3 of them. Like, it's just activity across the board every single time with Chris. I actually thought that it would have been cool for Darko to give him the start in Montreal, because like, I mean, look, it obviously, like, you want to see other guys, and obviously I would rather see Mogbo and develop, but at the same time, it's like, it's a one-time thing. It's an exhibition game in Montreal. Chris has probably done like 20 different interviews over the last week. Everyone's sort of trying to get at him. And it would have been really cool to hear his name, get the whole announcement going for the crowd. He got lots of love here anyway, and he actually did end up starting the second half. But I just thought that, like, it would have been really cool, again, to sort of just give him that moment. But regardless, Chris takes whatever he gets, and thought he did a good job. A couple plays where he's like a little bit lost, but like, I don't know. This game had a bit of a sloppiness element to it, especially with guys leaving the game. With like, Davion left the game, for example, for a bit after he like slipped on what maybe was a wet spot. And he kind of did a bit of the splits. Might have pulled his hamstring just a little bit. RJ leaving the game with the shoulder thing, and then of course all those like third and fourth stringers coming in in the fourth quarter. Like that was just kind of nasty to watch from a basketball purist standpoint. But yeah, still, like, I just think that, those are probably the main rotation guys that you will see. And those are the guys that, all did decently. So, before I guess hand out 3 stars and, of course, take your questions as well. Once again, reminder, producer Alex is is going to be taking your comments and taking your questions. So, if you have something for the show, please let him, well, just leave it in the live chat and Alex will be fishing it out. But yeah, well, I want to talk about Mogbo. It's interesting with Mogbo because the stat line is actually totally fine. 2 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, a block. Yeah, the 105, like, look, it's not like he's promised to be like this, like, dominant scorer. I think that anyone expecting that is like very foolish right now. But I think for me, it's just like the box score was good, like, and it shows a lot of like good connected plays, and I think that even like defensively, I think he was decent in terms of just like giving a good effort, closing out, all that kind of stuff. I think a couple things for me, like it just feels like a little bit like he doesn't know where to be, and some of that is part of being a rookie, but some of that is also just like I feel like you see a decent amount of moments where, like, let's say for example, RJ's posting up and he tries to flash to like the same wing, and then after the play ends, like RJ going over to talk to him, being like, "Hey, don't cut here," or like, "Don't cut then." Or one play where RJ was posting up on one end of the floor and Mogbo made a basket cut, even though there wasn't that space. And when RJ threw the pass, like, I think he was anticipating Mogbo to be in the corner still, but since Mogbo's not a strong 3-point shooter yet, he made the cut instead of like waiting in the corner. And it's little things like that where it doesn't totally feel like he's 100% comfortable. I think there's also the ball handling aspect, which he can sort of like, I guess, maintain the momentum of a break, in terms of if you swing it to him, like he can sort of like keep up the pace of the game. But at the same time, it feels like the handle's a little high, and it's not like he's necessarily getting into like gaps and then like really really advancing and sort of putting the defense under so much pressure that he's then able to set up a really good look for his teammates. And I say all this to say that, like, and also I think that in terms of the finishing, like, okay, the 3-point shot's not there, but like, can he finish strong around the basket? I think when he gets a chance to really get off his feet, especially with two hands, he's gonna like finish above the rim. That's great. But at the same time, when there's a few plays where he was rolling to the cup where JV was there, for example, and I have to say, like, JV was getting cooked every single way possible in the pick and roll, which was a huge reason why the Raptors jumped all over the Wizards to start the game. But when JV was at the rim, like, he didn't feel like he had a plan. Like, he was just kind of jumping and then trying to like stretch or reach. And like, I do think that there has to be like the adjustment made in terms of like the finesse that you would need, or like even just like the reads that you would need in terms of like the angles, in terms of like the types of finishes, whether you want to like finish it high off the glass, or you want to like, I don't know, like there's obviously like a million varieties of post moves. And a guy like, for example, RJ, for example, it's not even post moves, it's just finishing moves. Like, guys who know how to find an angle, know how to like time it, know how to sort of want to quick shoot it, want to sort of take it strong all the way, want to play for the contact. Like, I do think that sort of finesse has to sort of like grow and learn. Even like a guy like Jakob, like, he's obviously not going to be like dunking it all the time. In fact, he very rarely dunks it, but he's got the ability to sort of play it off the glass. He's got the little push shots. Where sometimes he goes quickly with it, sometimes he sort of goes a little slower and stuff like that. So, I say all this to say that, like, if he gets those other aspects down, I think that the rest of his game will really amplify, because I think he has a lot of like secondary skills already that, for example, like him and Grady are taking like almost two separate opposite developmental approaches. Like, Grady comes in, like, he's a good 3-point shooter, and now it's like, okay, how do we build off of this one guaranteed skill, and teach you some secondary skills, whether that's defense, whether that's cutting, whether that's I don't know, rebounding, whether that's playmaking, all that kind of stuff. The Mogbo doesn't have that one guaranteed skill, but he has a lot of the secondary skills already baked in. So once he actually gets down to like, this is my role, this is what I do, this is how I impact the game, I think that then I think you'll start to see more of an appreciation for the other parts of his game. But it's interesting. Like, honestly, Mogbo, like, it's not too, I guess, dissimilar from when Scotty first came in, but I think Scotty was just like so much stronger, so much more assertive. And I mean, Scotty hit the ground running. Like, second game of Scotty's career, he's in Boston, and he, leading the Raptors to a win and getting the Celtics booed off the court. And I'm like already in love with the kid after 2 games. Even in summer league, right? He was like screaming and he's like physically all dominant. I feel like Mogbo is a little bit more shy in terms, not personality wise, because if you watch any of the open gym clips, he's actually like, certainly a guy who is friendly, and like, I don't know, he's a guy who brings a lot of energy to the team. But on the court, he looks a little bit more timid. Like it doesn't necessarily look like the same thing. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I'm intrigued. I think I'm just kind of waiting and seeing sort of what it is because to the eye test, there were a lot of moments where just like you gotta like figure out sort of where to be, when to be, how to go about it. And I suppose it's not too dissimilar for most rookies, but I think for me, I would love to know like what's that one thing? Because even with Shamshay, I'm like I know what the one thing is. The one thing is like his combination of strength. I guess it's just his physique. Really, like he's quick on his feet. He's strong, and he's got good athleticism. The issue with Shamshay though, when you watch this game, I mean like. Did he have a good moment here? Like, he had a putback dunk, or like I guess threw a backdoor pass to Brandon Carlson, who got fouled. So let's call that an assist. But like, if you watch the fourth quarter, he's so there is a long way to go in terms of just the experience, in terms of like, and this is something we saw in summer league as well. Like this is the benefit of being there for in person for summer league, for example, was you get to be in that gym with like 300 other people, and it's quiet, and all you can mostly hear is speakers. You're not hearing the broadcast or anything like that because you're physically there, and you can see that like every single play down, Jama is telling him where to screen, when to screen, what angle to use to screen, or whether or not you should just clear out. You could see that Jamal Shead, who was his point guard for most of it, like walking him through like every single possession. You know what I mean? And like obviously there's a degree of like having to communicate with each other on the court, but it's also a sign of like just how sort of like much direction he needs right now. Even when you see like even Jared Roden, who is not gonna make the team, he's gonna just go 905, I'm pretty sure. But like even a guy like that, like even he was sort of telling Shamshay like, hey, where to be here than this. And it's just like it's so chaotic, and almost to the point where it's like he'll lose his man for an open cut, or he will he's kind of rolling, but he's out of the way, and like maybe the initial action in terms of like if they're gonna swing it to him at the top of the floor for him to swing it to the next action, or if they give him to the top of the floor and his read is either I'm going to feed the post or I'm going to dribble a handoff back to a guard who comes back to receive the ball. Outside the first action, in terms of just thinking through the possessions, like it's almost like him and Kelly are playing two different sports. You know what I mean? And of course, like that's obvious. Kelly's played basketball for like probably 30 years of his life, and Shamshay's maybe played organized basketball like 3 years, right? But at the same time, it's gonna take time. Like it's even the basic functional things. Like he's running into guys, and guys are tripping because they're like, "What are you doing?" You know what I mean? Or he's throwing the passes that aren't there. So I think that like I mean, there's a degree of this with every rookie, but I do think with Shamshay, it's kind of the longest curve to sort of improve. At the same time, though, you can again see that he does have that one thing, which is he's so quick off the ground. He is so fast in the open court as a runner. You can definitely see that, like, if they, like, and I'm not trying to say this to disparage, like, if they teach him how to play basketball, he has the ability and the frame to be good at basketball. But, yeah, I don't know. The first impression is also kind of, like, very similar to what we saw in Summer League as well. And I don't think that it's going to be a 1-year process. I think it probably is a 2-year process with this. And we got to keep tracking it. Otherwise, I mean, if you guys really want to, like, might just offer, like, I don't even know if I'll offer one thing with the rest of the guys. Like, that's not to say like they're not important. They are important. Like Bruno Fernando, kind of plays with a mean streak. Rebounds hard. He's only 6'9", but at the same time, you can see his physicality. I think he probably has a little bit more skill than I guess what his role is, because his role kind of is just like almost like a garbage man, big, like rebound, set screens, etc., etc. But like saw him knock down like 6 or 7 straight threes in practice, and I was like, oh, okay, word. Like, I didn't know. And it's not like every NBA player, by the way, can knock down 7 straight threes. Trust me. I know that's like something where it's like the average NBA player is like way more talented. I mean, they are, but at the same time, like skill wise, like there's plenty of guys on this team that can knock down 7 straight threes. So I was a little surprised to see that with Bruno, and I guess there was that like little turnaround jumper that he made in the open practice. Now that I think about it, but like. Yeah, I mean, there's physicality there. I think that there's a battle for the 15th spot, and if you look at, I guess, just this game, I don't think there's that much separation. Like I think Battle similar to what he did in Summer League, was able to be opportunistic with his scoring. Doesn't have the ball much, but he's a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter, lefty. I think that Jamias Ramsey, actually, he's been shooting the three well. I thought he hit the three pretty decently in the open run as well, and he did so confidently here today, knocking down 2 corner threes and making a little bit of like a driving basket along the baseline. He's got like a good. He's athletic, and he also has like super long arms. So I feel like, especially if you can get the three down, all of a sudden, like, he's a legitimate prospect. But there's something there, I guess. Roden, he says here he made 3 baskets. I don't really remember them, unfortunately. Sorry. And then TJ Carden knocked down a step back 3. And yeah, I mean, kind of like more of a slashing kind of guard. He's got good athleticism. I think he wants to showcase his defense today. Maybe he had a couple defensive lapses, but yeah, overall, like, it was just a strong effort. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, I can't believe that we kind of have to wait like 5 days to see another preseason game. Would love to sort of immediately hop back in and sort of get more reps to see what they look like. Honestly, also see what they look like not against the Wizards, because, like, they're pretty terrible. The only thing I report from the Wizards is just I thought Koulibaly played pretty well. And, I was surprised to see him knock down some pretty contested mid-range shots and things like this. But, yeah, I mean, it's a good start to Summer League, and I don't think like there's a specific need to like course correct all your expectations, but getting a first look at it, I think, again, my number one thing is just they are playing defense now, which was not the thing last year. They're continuing to move the ball, and then certain guys look sharp and other guys sort of look a little bit lost. It's kind of like how pretty much every training camp opens up, but guys who look sharp are RJ, Grady, Kelly, Ochai. Honestly, I think Ochai's done a pretty good job so far. He's a guy who's also a little timid. Like, I guess it's just personality, but like, yeah, I wish Ochai was sort of like more, almost more nasty, you know what I mean? Like more active, but still, I think he's done a good job. And of course they're reinventing sort of his role, offensively. And a lot of that seems to be sort of, playing off of a guy like Kelly. But, yeah, it's a good start. So we're gonna go take your questions. Producer Alex, send me the questions that our fans and people have been sending in. Okay, first one from Jordan Hales. Shouts to Jordan. Longtime Raptor fan. This guy's on Raptor Twitter, dating back to the hashtag RTZ days, Raptor Tweet Zone. See this guy's workout videos now. See this guy around town. East Ender. But okay, Jordan asks, the Raptors look like a team that actually spent time together in the offseason. It's a loose and easy season, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they go through the peaks and valleys. Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that, like, once you kind of remove... Okay, this sounds terrible in terms of just like, okay, it might sound bad. It's almost like that Jakob quote where it's like, we don't have to win every game to have a good season, which everyone's like, what? Look at this loser. How could you blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's stupid, because that's not what he means, right? What he means is like, when you strip the expectation and like that sort of like, you're not happy until you win. Like, I think that this season it's almost been beaten out of you. Like, as a Raptor fan, like maybe the last 10 years, you've been, we've been all traded to such great teams and great results and fun personalities. And most importantly, they've been winning at a really high clip that, like, it's hard to train that out of you, but like they did hit the reset button, and now it's like you could just allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised, right? Rather than like the last couple of years when I was watching them, like, and maybe that just speaks to my own personal worldview, and maybe I got to work on that myself. But like, I was almost watching the Raptors so much like between like, I guess 2022 to 2024. And my big takeaway was just disappointment. Like, between like the headlines I would write for the podcast, or like headlines I would write for 10 things, like I would just be, I think I used the word disappointment a lot, because it was like you're just always expecting more, and when they did it, you were happy. When they didn't, you were just like, frustrated. I don't think I'll have that feeling as much this year, because like, part of what's made the RJ Barrett experience so enjoyable is like I wasn't expecting like this like super efficient, super under control, but also super motivated player to come in and just like give you an efficient 20 every night, which has made the enjoyment of watching him a lot better. It's the same thing with Quickly. I think there was probably more expectation with Quickly, considering he was the main piece coming back from the OG trade, but at the same time, like, I think he's been a pleasant surprise, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, I guess, even make his debut in preseason, hopefully soon. Um, there is like Grady. Like Grady started the season so badly, like you couldn't reasonably expect anything. Like especially behind the scenes, I'm walking around the arena every day, and I'm like, there's Grady's parents again, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a 19-year-old, and his parents have moved with him. Like he doesn't live with his parents, I don't think, but like they're there every game. It's like a constant reminder of like just how young he is, and it's like okay, like let's cut the expectations to zero. And then all of a sudden it felt really nice, almost like a bonus to get his production and his like, bigger stat lines that we start to see towards the end of the season. With all these rookies coming in, like Shed feels like found money, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just a general piece of advice in life, but like expectations don't necessarily always serve um, in a positive way. I could certainly see how that keeps you accountable and keeps you motivated. And it's something I've certainly dealt with a lot. I think anybody with Asian parents would know that expectation is like, kind of life or death kind of thing. But yeah, finding another way to be is also, can be pretty beautiful as well. And, even in a very minor sense with the Raptors, like it's been really beautiful to just say like, you know what, let me just appreciate what these guys have and then try to see how they get better from here. I think that's honestly why they hired Darko too. Like, Darko doesn't, it's just, yeah, I mean, I would truly wonder how many times Darko has yelled at the team, for example. But yeah, this was fun. I really liked it. Do we have more questions, Alex? Next one from Mood Vic Vibes, which yeah, okay. This person said Shed Van Vliet, Dynamite Sheddy, Red Shed Redemption. His name has so much nickname potential. Yeah, you know what? I guess. Okay, the only thing I don't like is Shed Van Vliet. Mostly because the last time we made a Fred Van Vliet pun nickname, it was for Malachi Flynn as the Red Van Vliet, and I have to say Malachi played nothing like Fred. And despite him actually taking Fred's number and being another small point guard with like not as like I guess like a pretty accomplished collegiate player like Fred was, and somebody who wasn't drafted in the first round. In Fred's case, he was totally undrafted. But like, I actually don't think Shed plays that much like Fred. Like I mentioned, like I think he plays really fast. I think he has like a quick twitch athleticism that I just don't think Fred ever did. Again, I'm not saying the Fred is not a better player. Like it would be, it'd be like the 99th percentile in terms of what possible outcomes come out of Jamal Shed's career if he can even be what Fred is now. And Fred's like a maximum player. Like, come on, man. Everyone knows I appreciate Fred too, but like I'm just saying in terms of styles of play, like it's actually not that similar. And I know Fred really got into the ball defensively too, but he wasn't like a havoc and incident creator. You know what I mean? Like Shed is like, it's crazy. Like I don't know. It's a different level for me. Like Fred, specialty was just the heavy hands. I thought he became really good, especially over the 2019 playoffs. You saw him really do a great job of guarding shooters. Even in the Sixers series before he was sort of like was unable to play because he just wasn't producing. He did a really good job of locking and trailing against JJ Redick, for example, which was like a nightmare player. Was Redick Embiid handoffs? Genuinely, just like took years off my life watching that. And of course Steph Curry, and him having to chase around Steph. Like, so you got really good at the off ball, defending a player off ball and something like that, sticking with him. I think Shed is different though. He creates incidents and turnovers in a way that, like, I don't know, it's very explosive. Like, he's an explosive defensive player, which is rare to see as a guard. Is rare to see as somebody who's not like, I don't know, I guess rare, like explosive defensive player would be like, Dikembe, rest in peace. But like Dikembe is like jumping from out of the gym and he's blocking your shot and he's wagging a finger and everything like that, right? Like, but there's something about Jamal where he's not just like playing fundamental defense and being totally locked in, but he'll go the extra route. He'll try to read you, like he's attacking you at every moment defensively. And it's great to see. Like, that's how you get those moving screen calls. That's how, like, there's a play I love that it wasn't even called a foul or anything, but like it was in the first quarter. So he was guarding Keyshawn George for the Wizards. He was one of their first round picks. I think he was taken right before the Raptors selected Jacoby, or maybe after, roughly in that range. I know the Raptors had a lot of interest in him too. And he played well tonight, by the way. Bigger ball handler, can really knock down the three, and it looks a lot stronger than he did in college. So, there was, I think he had a good game, but basically Jamal was on him, and Jamal was like leaning into him, like, pressure him, like even just like 90 feet from his own basket. And just to get him off of him, George used like a rip through move and just saw like, okay, what is happening? Dawn of the Shed. Okay, Jamal. Okay, Jerome. Thank you for this edit. But he's like performing like a rip through move, and he like literally hit Jamal in the face. And I think the referee probably would have called that. Um, if he didn't already give Jamal Shead the benefit of 2 offensive fouls on the other team. But like even things like that where it's like guys are committing offensive fouls in the first quarter in preseason, in the first game of preseason, in a city that the NBA doesn't even play in, just to sort of like get a inbound against Jamal. Like that's he's a sicko. Like I think that like defensively, the best defensive players, like you do need them to be kind of sickos as well. So I love that quality about Jamal, man. And again, it speaks to his character when you play defense like that. I'm speaking hypothetically because I've never played defense like that in my life. Anyway, next one from Joseph Cassidy. Serious question: whose jersey are you buying this year in purple? I think for me, I'm probably gonna go with RJ. I feel like RJ. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's a nice kit. I like wearing 9 on a kit. Like obviously, I'm a big soccer fan, so 9 is like a pretty popular number. It's like usually no number for strikers and goal scorers. But yeah, I think it just looks nice. I think the purple, I mean, I don't think you really go wrong. Honestly, with how much I love Shed, I might have to cut myself a 23. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it is kind of crazy to buy the jersey of a third stringer, but yeah. I'll probably go with RJ, but yeah, definitely purple. I'm certainly not buying the other ones. Well, actually, I don't know. That's not true. Maybe that like the one with the Raptor logo doing the Vince Carter between the legs dunk. Maybe that looks cool too. But I'll have to wait to see how that actually looks on people first before I buy it. The purple just looks great though. We're gonna take 2 more. And before we go into the 3 stars and the new segment this year, courtesy of Darko Rajakovic, the most important guy, the MIG Award. I can't wait to hand out a MIG after every game. I have to resist my temptation to not call him most improved player because that's kind of what it reminds me of. Anyway, this one from Nishay Seth, who sent in $5. Thank you. Appreciate it. They said, just supporting my favorite hoop pod. I know Raptors are rebuilding, but my God, are the Wizards dreadful. Yeah, the Wizards are so funny because I remember watching one of their games in Summer League, not against the Raptors, they didn't play each other, but just watching a Wizards game. I think they probably was playing like it was Houston. It was Houston. Because I was watching a lot of Reed Shepherd in Houston, and also Cam Whitmore. Those two were like a little bit too good for Summer League. But I was watching that game, and the Wizards had 4 players who they had used first round picks on in terms of guys who were in their lineup, right? So it was obviously Alex Sarr, who was the first overall pick in this draft, or it's like second overall pick, sorry, in this draft. It was Bob Carrington, who they took in the late teens. It was Keyshawn George, and then I think Johnny Davis, who they used the first round pick last year's draft in. And then I was watching these 4 first rounders, and the guy who actually was leading the team in scoring and thoroughly outplaying everybody was Justin Champagnie, who was like the 15th man for the Raptors like 3 seasons ago. And he had like 15 points, and the rest of them had like 5 each. And I was like, damn, like, how are you going to have Justin Champagnie outplay 4 first round picks in this game? I know it's Summer League, I know it's a one-off, whatever, but like, it was crazy. I don't know. The Wizards are hilarious. Like, even like Sarr, like for example, like the Wizards are clearly in developmental mode, right? So this is the first preseason action. What did they do? Like Sarr played the first shift as a starter. I don't think he even touched the ball for the first like 9 minutes of the game. He had to sub out, come in with the bench, and then start actually engaging with the game. And he played well. He actually played well. But it was like, what do you mean that he's just not going to get the ball? Like, what are you guys doing? And of course, it's like a lot of Kyle Kuzma, a lot of JV, a lot of Jordan Poole. It's like, yo, it's not about those guys this season. It really isn't. But yeah, I mean, the Wizards are not great. I do think that the Raptors are playing the Wizards once again in preseason. So I don't want to have to slander them too much because the Raptors might lose to them in the next one. And this might all look silly. But yeah, I don't know. The Wizards are a joke. The funniest thing with the Wizards is they haven't won 50 games. They haven't had one 50-game season in the last, like, I think dating back to like the 60s. Like, I think Nixon was, like, Watergate was happening when they last won 50 games. It was crazy. So that's yeah. And then what? Last question? No, Alex, are we taking the last one or no? We're not gonna take it. Oh, Mel. Mel says, Will, you look under the weather, get some soup. Do I look under the weather? I'm fine. Like, but as an Asian man, I certainly will not turn down some soup. Do love some soup, but no, I'm actually feeling great, man. But okay, all right. Well, awkwardness aside, we're gonna get to your 3 stars and your MIG. All right, because that's something we do this year. Okay, so first star for me is gonna go to RJ. I think RJ stand out like head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else in this game. The 3-point shot dropping at a high rate is something that it continues to be a real joy. Again, like just cutting expectations lower and sort of seeing sort of what you get as what you get is a nice way to appreciate things in general, but it's just a nice way to enjoy things in general. But yeah, I think, RJ did really well today, knocking down the threes and stuff like that. I think that, him going 7 of 10, 17 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Even the 3 turnovers, I think a lot of that was just like other guys weren't really doing a great job of cutting around him and stuff like that and not being in the right places. But the fact that he went to the paint like every time, he did a really good job of getting his own baskets too. So he's my first star. Second star, I'm going to give it to Jamal Shead. Again, really enjoyed his performance. 10 points, 4 assists, 3 steals. Off the bench, 4 of 6, and again, it's not the 3 steals. It's also he created 3 more turnovers for the Raptors. So like the Wizards had 18 turnovers, and Jamal was responsible for creating 6 of them, and he only played as a backup point guard for 17 minutes. Like you see what I'm saying? Like he's just a chaos creator, and I love that about him. And then your third star, I'm gonna give that to I don't know. I'll probably Kelly. Yeah, Kelly just does a really good job. He's leading the second unit. I like a lot of the offense going through him. Eventually, when Bruce Brown is available, I think he probably could do a little bit more too with the second unit. Jacoby Walter, if he gets into the mix, probably will do a little bit more. But I don't mind Kelly as like the backup point guard. Essentially, it's kind of cool. And even for the sake of practice and stuff like that, and training camp, like especially without Scotty there, like the closest guy to sort of how Scotty would play would be Kelly in a half court setting. So 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Your most important guy, though. Your most important guy. Who was the most important guy in this game? This could be for both teams, honestly. Most important guy in this game. It's probably Jamal. It probably was Jamal, but he was only there for half the game. Yeah, this is gonna be a hard thing to choose, man. The MIG. Who is the MIG? Honestly, who's the guy who sent in $5? Yeah, you're the MIG. Thank you for sending money to the podcast. I actually don't know how we're actually gonna collect this money, but I appreciate you doing it regardless. It's an act of love in a preseason setting, no less. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner, that's gonna go to Alex Sarr. I think expectations were so low because he had that 0-15 game in summer league, but like clearly he's got some talent, and of course if he's a 7-footer who can knock down threes alone, that alone should give you something. I do feel like he doesn't play with any physicality at all, and he doesn't rebound. And I'm like, wait, is this French Bargnani? I don't think so. Like, I think obviously he's gonna play better defense than Bargnani, but like without the physicality aspect, you're not gonna be a good defender. So even if you do have like great shot blocking stuff like that, so but still, like I suppose a Miles Turner kind of type of player. Like I thought Sarr did well, and he knocked down the streets today, 15 points. 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. So thanks everyone for listening to the Reaction Podcast. Again, like we can be here, I mean, depending on how these lives go, but I think people are enjoying them. I'm enjoying doing them as well. And as long as you sort out the logistics of like how do we actually set up these lives, in terms of like whether I'm going to be at the arena or whether I'm going to be here at home, they're fun to do, and I like engaging with the people as well. I like the people sending in comments. And so if you have enjoyed the Hello and Welcome podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our show. By the way, when I say rate the show, I mean like if you listen on Spotify, at the top of the podcast, in terms of like the vertical, you will see an option to sort of like rate the show. Please do that there. We are getting a lot of good feedback on that front. And then more importantly, on the Apple podcast side, what you can do is if you're listening through the just the Apple podcast app that comes with every iPhone or whatever, at the top of the thing, you can actually write a review. You can give the 5 stars, which we would obviously really appreciate, but continue to write reviews. And I think the reason we try to highlight and stress this because that helps really influence sort of like our position on the charts. We want to make sure that we remain as the number one basketball podcast in Canada, especially now that we've gone independent. I think, quite frankly, it's a sign of validation of sort of what we're doing, and the work that we're doing is working. But it also really helps in terms of just like recapturing our audience and finding new Raptor fans as well to sort of expand the show into, bring them into the community. Because the higher we are in the charts, the more like likely someone's going to go looking for something and just like stumble upon it. So again, like writing reviews, even if you write something short, but ideally something nice, it really, really helps us on that front. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed the sickle report from the training camp, open practice, if you enjoyed the Matt Devlin interview, which we have gotten so much great feedback for, and I really, really want to say thank you for that. Most importantly, I want to say thank you to Matt for being game to give us the time in the interview. But I thought, it was really fun time, and we're going to be back, obviously, covering the Raptors in full depth this season. We're really excited. We're going to go record another 2 episodes tomorrow morning. So I'm literally going to go to sleep and wake up and go back to the studio. But yeah, I'm just excited to see whatever it is the Raptors are this year. Hopefully it's more like this than anything else. But I appreciate that we're sort of taking this journey together. And like I said before, man, the only thing you could really take in this business are your relationships. And I know that the relationship that we have with fans is like the most important thing. And that's what's always carried me ever since I started as independent, and what's going to continue to help our show now that we're here as well. So big thanks to the fans, big thanks to all our sponsors, Betway, big thanks to Tangerine, big thanks to new sponsors, Greta as well, other sponsors coming on board. Get at us, get at our sales team. But yeah, that's enough plugs for now. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, and this has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.